the Empress
to the
and the
Empress and the
Fool.
Fool.
I'm Sarah Ditmore,
And I'm Kaitlyn Gulock.
and we're here to discuss all things magical and mystic from the perspective of two curious witches. Did that feel good? Do we have to do that again?
No, that felt
Okay,
great.
amazing. I'm so excited.
Yeah,
So Kaylin, why are we here? What is this?
we are here because who doesn't want another podcast of two best friends?
Exactly, because we've been friends for what now? 8 years?
That doesn't feel like long enough
I
in
know.
my mind. Like that doesn't calculate.
I know.
Yeah,
A lifetime? Eternity?
we met in a past life. Um,
Oh my God,
we
I did have a past life, like a client want to do a reading about a past life today. We can talk about that later.
oh,
Yeah, we met in 2016. I was doing grad school in Scotland, and you were also in Scotland for school.
mhm.
And back then we were like, we should start a podcast someday because we're so entertaining and people would love to listen to us. And then 8 years later, I was like, hey, do you want to start a podcast? And we actually
Yes.
have some shit to talk about. And so that brings us here.
So we just have always been so drawn to witchy things. And despite it just being really popular in culture, I think we've just always grappled with spirituality in different ways and really. I won't speak for you, but I'm going to speak for you. You
Yeah, you
really
know
helped
me.
me, like, you really helped me grow. And I think we really, like,
Mhm.
pushed each other to be curious and to be
Yeah.
bold in exploring witchiness as an actual way to connect spirituality with, like, intuition and with our actual
Mhm.
feelings about the world and trying to understand it. Because
Yeah.
other forms of spirituality just didn't work out for us as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think that's exactly it. I think the whole kind of point of this podcast is that one thing we share, and one thing I was actually just talking to someone about this, is that like it's really hard to be deeply spiritual and deeply believing in magic when you're also deeply skeptical and like very anti, like, the new age cultisms of like, oh yeah, we're all just like tapped into 5G, baby. And it's just like,
it's a fine
oh my
line.
God. Speaking of, out here, there's a whole trend right now in my community where folks think that this is gonna kill you for new listeners, which is I guess everyone, this is the first episode. Uh Kaylin is a nurse, and
Uh,
so lately there's been a trend out here where folks think that sunscreen is causing cancer. And so they don't wear sunscreen because it's what causes cancer, not the sun. Yeah. And so it's that stuff. And it's that stuff that really like pulls us away from the world of spirituality over and over again. But personally, we've always been very drawn to come back in. You are dying. What do you want to say?
no, I love your thought. I love your thought. I just really got stuck in the trap
I
of,
know.
oh my God,
I know
what?
when I told my partner this fact, he also got trapped in like the, oh my God, our world, what is our world coming to? And I think that's what this podcast is about. How can we explore witchcraft? How can
Mhm,
we explore spirituality? How can we talk very seriously about the role like tarot has played in our lives and working with
mhm,
spirits and seeing ghosts and like take those things seriously and give those space to those things,
mhm.
while also how holding a healthy dose of skepticism and being curious about like where is this coming from? What is the root in this? Like, is this legit or does this come from like racism? Does this come from like
Mhm.
fear, from conspiracy? Like, where is the root of this idea?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's for me like why I'm excited about this podcast. But I don't know. What about you?
I absolutely agree with all of those things because it's really, you're right. It's like really hard to draw the line between just being somebody who is spiritual and being somebody who is, and I even kind of like take umbrage with that word as well because I'm like, what does that even mean? It's just somebody who's like curious about how
Mhm.
things work and why things work and
Yeah.
um has experienced some weird things in their life. But I've seen some shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but it's really hard, like like you said, like kind of like yeah, drawing that line
Mhm.
between like being overly like jaded and overly analytical to kind of overly trusting and overly
Mhm.
like buying into a lot of hype.
Right.
I think you and I both resonate, and that's why like we did also want to start this because you and I both resonate so well with each other with like
Yeah.
I want to believe, but I also like it's like the
I have
science and art.
questions.
I have a lot of questions.
I'm in. Tell me your ghost story, but I have questions. Did you check the electric circuit? Like,
Did could we explain that feel like are you gassy? Like is that what that feeling was?
right, right.
And I think, yeah, like everything, I think one of the things that I have always like loved is what is deeply spiritual can be like made fun of and can be questioned. And it has to be.
Yes,
Like, if you're
right.
not grappling with that and if you're just putting something on a pedestal without actually looking at it, that's kind of like,
I think it's dangerous. I think when we make
mm,
things sacred and untouchable, they become unquestionable. And like if we don't
mm.
question things, that's when things get dangerous.
Yeah, and people can get, oh, this is getting real deep. Yeah,
I
people
know,
can
we
get
just dove right in right away. Look at us. We haven't even talked about anything. Okay.
but yeah, it can be like it can be such a I don't know, what is it? Like a trap.
Yeah.
And people can be really like manipulated by
Yeah.
that. So I don't know. We're here, we're gonna be here every
We're
week
here,
to
we're queer, and we're ready to talk about witchcraft.
we're queer.
Speaking of, I think we should introduce ourselves. Like we said our
Yeah,
names, but let's talk a little bit about who we are. Let's maybe talk about who we are, and then we can talk about like the podcast itself. But
yeah.
who are you? How do you identify?
Me, I am I'll go first. I'm Kaitlyn. My pronouns are she, they. I mostly identify as a goblin creature because well, I don't know. Who
Yeah,
am I? What
because
am
it's
I?
accurate.
Because it's accurate.
Anyone who's known you for more than 10 minutes knows that.
Yeah, while I'm like perched up on
Hmm.
seats.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I love
hi
it.
guys.
It's a vibe.
Yeah, so like Sarah said, I work as a nurse in psychiatry. I'm currently working on my doctorate to be a primary care
That's so
family nurse
exciting.
practitioner. Yeah, and definitely as indicated by my flag, I am queer, pansexual, kind of gender queer, gender fluid, and I really love like my whole mission in my life is to like be an advocate for people who are gender and sexuality kind of like non-conforming and people who are just from diverse backgrounds and to yeah listen to them and have them be represented in healthcare. um, but kind of more personally, I'm originally from Japan. I am half Japanese, half white.
Plus half.
Yeah, half. Yeah, the exotic half is from Detroit. But yeah, I grew up in Japan. I moved here when I was like 12, and I've kind of been living all over the world. Like Sarah and I met in Scotland. Um, yeah, so there's
Amazing.
probably more stories to be told there,
Oh, you'll
but
get to know us plenty.
yeah,
You have a
yeah.
great new dog.
I have a
We are not
child.
gonna wake her up because she's a
No,
puppy and will turn into a monster, but she's adorable.
she's sleeping and she's perfect. And I'm gonna pull up a photo of her
Oh,
because
perfect.
um she
Which, if you're
just
listening via audio medium, we are also going to be posting a video version on YouTube. So if you want to see the
yeah.
photo, if you want to see the flag, if you want to see how goblin-y and cute Kaitlyn is,
And
you
my
can
little
go to our YouTube.
sprout.
Yes, which I need to make a matching one. We'll be little buds together. Literal
Uh,
buds.
oh, love. Okay, so my dog is named Sora, which means sky. Um, I had a dog that passed away a few years ago. His name was Sunny, who Sarah
Oh,
got to know
yeah.
very well.
We
So
love
this is
Princess
the
Sunny.
Prince Sunny, rest in rainbow heaven. But this is my new little girl, Sora.
No,
She just
little Snow. She's so
she
cute. She
discovered
is just a
snow for the first
tiny
time.
black fluff with just a
Uh-huh.
face full of snow. I love her.
Yeah, I love her too. So you'll see her on the podcast too
Oh, great.
when we're posting again and
Yeah.
when we're recording. I cannot guarantee that she won't make squeaks and little sounds.
Great.
So,
Perfect ambiance. I love it.
well, tell me about you. I
Yeah,
already know
so
about you, but tell everyone else how wonderful you are.
yes, thank you. My name is Sarah. I am also queer. I don't have like a specific queer identity I resonate with. It's like the more I try to pick one, the more freaked out I get, and then I'm like, why not just queer? And so
That's why
that's
mine come
enough
with a
for
lot of
me. Yeah,
mine come with a
yeah.
lot of commas because I'm like,
Yeah, well, also she, they pronouns. I'm neurodivergent, and I feel like that's relevant because if you haven't figured it out already, it's pretty obvious in the way we talk. Um, I am a witch professionally. I consider myself a hedge witch. That's kind of the vibe. I mean, I've gone back and forth with like that term specifically, but yeah, I consider myself like a hedge witch, a folk witch. My practices are rooted in my ancestry, so Northern European, Slavic, a little bit of Western European as well. And Appalachian is kind of the magical history of my lineage that I connect most with. I mean, there's a lot more there if you want me to like pull up my 23andMe, but like that's the origins that come through the most in my practice. I live in Tahoe in Truckee, and I teach yoga out here. I read tarot. I offer witchy services. What else? I talk to trees and birds, so that's fun. We'll talk about that at some point, I'm sure. I am also a pet mom. I have a dog and a cat, Hector and Mowgli.
And I
Uh,
love them.
pull up a photo too. So they'll, I'm sure, make an appearance, but they're both sleeping right now. Hector's a little rascal. He's a little orange kitty cat. Here he is trying to kill himself in the dryer.
Baby
Give
Hex.
him a little lecture about how that's how cats die. Um, and then my Mowgli Moo, he is disabled. He's in a little doggy wheelchair. Here he
The
is.
sweetest little potato ever.
Here he is on in his wheels on Christmas in his little elf costume. He looks like a black
Shut
lab, but
up.
he's a mutt. Yeah, he's like 8.5. You could see he's got a little gray beard. He's super cute.
He's
I'm sure we'll
8
talk. I
already?
know. He's gonna turn 9 this summer. He's a big boy. I
He is a
know.
big boy. My
He's a
little wheelie
sweetheart.
boy.
What else? I write. I'm currently working on like a witchy YA novel that I'm actually going to spend Friday editing. So hopefully someday you'll get to read that if you're listening. I love tea. I love travel. I'm a hardcore Pisces. I cry a lot. Oh, should we share our big three?
Yeah,
That feels like something people would like if they're witchy. Okay,
yeah, go for
my
it.
sun is in Pisces, my moon is in Aries, and my rising's in Leo.
I forgot we have the same
I
rising.
know, it's why we get along so well. We will
Oh, I
save
love
this for
it.
another episode, but I was just like diving into what your rising is about, and I just heard a like new way of thinking about it that really spoke to me because I feel like the rising can be complicated.
It is. I've I've really dived into that and I cannot for the life of me like figure it out. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
says something kind of different. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah. I will share.
because
I'll get the quote and I'll share it with you later. But it was like, it was from this podcast I listened to. I think it's the Channy app. Yeah, it's the Channy app. They have like Channy Nicholas has like a weekly astrology podcast where she talks about. I think her pronouns are. I think it's pronouns are she, but
mhm.
she talks about like the astrology of the week ahead. And in this week's, which we're recording this on January 8th. So if you're listening to this, it's the Monday, January 6th episode of Channy's podcast where she talks about like looking at people's sun, moon, and rising, and she describes the rising as like the you of your chart because it's the only piece of your chart that represents like the exact minute you were born. And so it's like that's like the body, the self. It's not like your deep, like emotional, like underpinning, stuff, but it's like it's how you show up. It's who you are in this world. And then it's like who the ruler of that is informs that. And so the ruler of the Leo is your sun. So our sun signs we probably also really resonate with because they rule our rising. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'm hella Pisces Leo. Are you kidding me? Like
That makes
now, I
so
do want to
much
like
sense.
caveat that neither of us are astrologers, and I'm paraphrasing something, so like do your own research.
No. Yes, yes.
But
Oh, so my big three
yes.
are my sun is in Aries, my moon is in Scorpio, which I love because we are like water, fire,
Hmm.
sun and moon switch.
Good
And then
balance.
my rising is Leo, which is fun.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, my like, I know this is our intro podcast,
Yeah, yeah.
and we're probably gonna have an episode about astrology at some
Yeah, of
point.
course.
But my position is always like, it's not prescriptive; it's slightly descriptive. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
you don't have to. Oh, wow,
Yeah.
Look at me go. It's not, it's like, I feel like it's kind of like parallel to tarot. It's like you can just take
Mm-hmm.
it or leave it.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes it'll just help, I don't know, like help put to
Yeah.
words like things that you're feeling. And if you resonate with it, great. And if you
Yeah.
don't, great. Who
Yeah.
cares?
I'm sure that exact concept will come up a lot as we talk about all the things we're going to talk about.
All of the
Um,
things. Hmm.
okay. So I want to talk about like what this podcast is about.
Hmm.
So do we want to dive into that, or is there anything else before we get there? And
Yeah, no, I think.
also, should we light our little candles like witches?
Yes.
Okay. I feel like this like the, real start of the episode as we talk about like how did we get here, our story, what is magic? So I want to like initiate it with a little candle.
And a little
Okay,
like
you asked me
lighter
earlier what
ASMR.
scent this was, and I didn't tell you because I wanted to share it with everyone. These are called companion candles because their fumes are pet safe. I know. And they're all covered, the little candles are all covered in dogs and kitties.
That's fucking cute.
I
Oh,
know. And the smell is
that one
balsam
looked like
and
Sunny.
I believe you. Oh yeah, Dylan's little sunny guy. And the smell is hello snow, and then it's balsam and cypress.
Cute.
I know.
Yours is very wintry. Mine
Yes.
is not specifically pet safe, but let's hope that it is. And
Yeah.
mine is a classic, courtesy of Whole Foods, yuzu and prickly pear. I'm going for a
Ooh.
very different vibe.
Yeah, you're
It's
like summoning the sun. I mean, the Aries and the Pisces right there, baby. I'm like, yes, deepen into the winter, bring the snow, let me hibernate. And you're like, let's go to the
mm-mm.
desert.
I am not. I'm not a winter
Yeah, I'm
creature.
so shocked.
I am like as soon as I see any signs of like spring, like I'm like February, I see a sprout. It's spring. It's happening now. Like
I
I
read for
am
six
willing it.
hours straight yesterday because this is my season. I know. Neurodivergence for the win.
I am
The
just
week.
sitting there with like thick socks on, just like fuck this.
We
Why
do.
do I
Do
have
I
to
have the
shovel
little
my fucking
scissors in
driveway?
here? No, I don't. I have to show you
All
later.
right.
Okay. Oh, you. Yes.
Oh,
No.
ASMR. Ooh. All right, let's light this. Also, I guess like how many minutes into this are we? Warning
18.
that 18 minutes we are well foul-mouthed creatures as well.
Oh.
So yeah, just for
I
future
don't even
reference,
know if we've sworn yet or not. I have no awareness of that.
I have.
I'm
I
sure I
have.
have. I don't track it.
It's my
My
native
sister and I were just
language.
having a conversation about like so I have a nephew, he's 2 years old, and I'm not gonna say his name because I have not asked, but
Yes.
he
Protect the baby.
is, I'm sure I can, should put some on social media, but I'll ask. Um, but he said damn it for the first time. He said his first swear word.
I'm so proud.
Because he's in the car and Amy said damn it about something, and then he goes, damn it, and everybody laughs, and so he gets a reaction, and so then he just starts going, damn it, damn it. And then they thought it was over, and then they were like out doing something, and he like dropped something, and he looks at his mom and goes, damn it. She's like, oh
I
no.
love.
So we were having a conversation of like swearing in front of kids, and she was like, on the one hand, I know I should like think about it and blah blah blah. And but she's like, but also like, he's gonna hear us swear. Like, no one in my family has a filter. My parents did, but the kids do not. And yeah.
I have no filter. I have a really lovely fan that I got from Pride. One is like progress Pride flag,
Yeah,
which I love, but
lovely.
the other one has the C bomb on it.
Okay. Incredible.
And I love just like fanning it out
Yeah, just been like,
like like
I'll have to make an appearance on the future episode.
I
We,
know. Well, I said C bomb because I know that some people are
yeah,
much more
that's like
sensitive.
like maybe that's a little sensitive one for some people. We're not British. We can't pull it off.
No, but it's still one of my favorite words,
It's a great
like
word.
when used respectfully,
Yes.
but
Well, that's my brother's rule. He's a high school English teacher, and that's his rule is you can swear, but not if you're using it like at another person. Like if you're using it as an insult, or a
yes.
way to bring another person down.
Well, yeah, I absolutely agree with
Yeah.
that. But yeah, it's
Okay.
okay. Yes.
Candles are lit. Like I said, neurodivergent. Candles for the win.
Yes.
Let's begin. So, I guess what we want to talk about, we talked a little intro, who we are, what the podcast is, but I think we want to get with this episode. We want to spend this time getting a little more deeply into like our spiritual journeys.
Hmm.
And I think a part of that is kind of explaining what the Empress and the Fool means and why that's the name of this podcast.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of wrapped into our journeys. So maybe I'll share a little bit about like where this name came from, and then that can lead us into our stories. So yeah, so I think we want to talk a little bit about like where this podcast idea came from, what the name means, and then who we are, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what you can expect from the episodes.
Yes.
So the Empress and the Fool is me and Kaitlyn. I am the
Hmm.
Empress,
I'm the fool.
proudly.
Very proud. So
Yes,
proud.
which I'm sure we'll talk about a lot, but.
Mhm.
But for me, Kaitlyn, for as long as I've known them, Kaitlyn's card has been the Fool. Like they've, and I'll let Kaitlyn speak to that more. But for me, it's never been that easy. Kaitlyn's always been like, "What card in the Major Arcana do you resonate with?" I'm like, "Well, today I'm resonating with the Queen of Wands." Like I don't know, it changes. I'm growing. I'm evolving.
Mhm.
Don't put me in a box. But in terms of this podcast, well, Kaitlyn has always seen me as the Empress, which I find very nice.
Mhm.
You have told me that multiple times. And I
Yeah.
think that in the context of this podcast, it really resonates because I think what we're trying to do here is give a balanced approach of I'm someone who has really like lived this world of magic in a more professional setting, who has more of that like traditional training and is also very like using my practice as a part of my community, as in building like a life that like resonates with me and feels very intuitively led. Um, and Kaitlyn is more of someone, well, I'll let you, Kaitlyn, tell me what the Fool part of it is.
Uh, yeah, I've definitely been more, in intuitively led. Even though I'm like a person with kind of a, I think we're like switched. I'm a person with like a science profession,
Yeah.
but sees the world like so malleably.
Yeah.
And you're a person who's like rooted in seeing that malleability and spirituality, but you approach it in a very like
I read the books.
methodical way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I say that, like, I usually think that people tend to resonate with a card, and I like with Sarah, it kind of changes
Yeah.
with their phase in life and how they're feeling or what hour of
And
the day it
truly,
is
like
for
I
me.
do resonate a lot with the King of Wands. I have it tattooed, a version of it tattooed on me,
I
but
love
King of
it.
Wands and the Fool just didn't sound as good.
No, and I love like I don't know. So my card being the Fool, I draw it like suspiciously frequently.
Yeah.
Um, I also think it's funny that Aries is the start of the astrological
Hmm.
of the whoa astrological calendar. And the Fool is number 0 on the major
Yeah.
arcana. It's the first card,
Yeah.
and it just has this energy of like going into the unknown without
Mm.
fear. And that's been so much of my life.
Yeah.
Not to say that I'm not a fearful person. There's been plenty of, I live with a lot of
Mm.
anxiety, but it's about like not being afraid to take a step forward into new journeys,
Yeah.
which has been so much of my life, like moving to new countries, trying
Hmm.
new things, trying like, why the hell not?
Yeah.
And I just love that way that I live my life. So it's like just kept on resonating with me. Um, and it's just having that like the Fool, well, I know we'll talk about this far more, but it's like about not having that inhibition. It's like kind of having like a child's mind.
Yeah. And like I think in the context of the topics we're going to talk about in this podcast, it's like asking questions, diving in, trying it
Mm-hmm.
all, like,
I
not
know.
feeling like it has to be the one right answer.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And then for me, for you, why I always
Yeah.
like think of the Empress is she's just like nurturing and whole.
Mm.
Like there's just a
Yeah.
lot of like warm-heartedness and giving, and Sarah's always been a person in my life that I like want to call when I'm confused about things, and this kind of feels like that like mother big sister figure that you
Like,
always
oh,
want to
let
like,
me tell you how it works.
yeah, or like
Totally.
let me just listen, or like
Yeah, yeah.
it always just feels like this really solid like touch point of
Yeah.
this really beautiful giving energy, and that's how
Yeah.
I've always seen you. It's like this person who's like very comforting.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it
and
just,
I love that because I think, as I think more about the concept of like the Empress and the Fool in this podcast, I think I really resonate with that in the sense of like, you have the Hierophant who's very like in touch, or I mean, who's very like structured and studied and like knows her shit. And then you have like the High Priestess who like, is more of a like intuitive, like channeler, like listens to the spirits. And while I
Mhm.
associate with both of those, I think what I really resonate with about the Empress is this sense of like her spirituality is nature. What she's grounded in first and foremost is nature. And like
Yeah.
there is a trust there that like, there's an ebb and a flow, there's a river on the card, like it's always coming and going, things change, things develop. There's not like a super structured practice there of like it has to be this way. Um, it's a practice that's rooted in, I mean, the whole card is like Venus energy, right? You have the sign of
Hmm.
Venus, you have femininity, and while I don't necessarily associate with femininity as a gender, as like a magical energy, that like
Hmm.
connection to nature, that connection to abundance, that like prioritization of like rest and beauty and like community is something that I really
Hmm.
resonate with.
That's what I love.
Cool.
And I know that we're going to talk about like masculine and feminine in
Oh, I'm
future
sure we
episodes as
will. I have a
well.
lot to say about it.
Oh, I have a lot to say.
Let me at it. Divine feminine my ass.
Add it to the document. Like feminine being woman my ass.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. There is a vibe of divine feminine I can get on board with, but don't call it woman. Yeah.
Don't you fucking dare. I hate that.
Anyway, so that's kind of how we landed on the concept of the Empress and the Fool.
Yeah.
Um, but how did we become the Empress and the Fool? So I wanted to talk a little bit about like our spiritual journeys,
Yeah.
which are very paralleled, like very different stories, but I say paralleled in the sense that it feels like we found each other at the right time on our journey. Um, I don't really remember the turning point for me. I grew up in a very secular household. Like my grandpa's a nuclear physicist who like growing up used to tell my mom that like people who believe in religion are just too weak to like accept that we all just die and there's nothing else.
He was a hardcore
Yeah, it's like
scientist.
science. And he's softened over the years, he's intrigued and curious, but maybe he's getting a little closer. Should I cut that?
No, it happens. No, it happens. You know, you kind of
But
you gotta reflect once you get
yeah,
on with your
exactly.
journey.
Closer. But yeah, so we grew up very science-based. Like my grandma, she was Christian. She on my other side of the family, like she went to church every week, but wasn't like very hardcore about it, and we
Mhm.
always knew it. We'd go to church with her on Christmas, but that was literally my only exposure to religion. I had some like Christian friends, and the town I grew up in was kind of like an affluent, like Christian. There was some Mormon like community, but we weren't really a part of that, like never really
Mhm.
engaged with it. Um, when I was 18, I got really into yoga. I did a gap year, and during my gap year, I stayed with a family in India for part of it and worked like as an apprentice to an Ayurvedic medicine practitioner. Um, and it was really my first introduction to anything spiritual. And what I really liked about that experience and what kind of woke something up in me was that I wasn't part of like a training program or anything, so I wasn't learning like practical like theory and philosophy, but I was just like learning from two guys who live this world. And it was like very, I mean, it was like a little weird. Like I got it. It was very just like, oh, let me just like hang out with this dude now and learn how to mix some herbs. But so many of the conversations were about like learning how to talk to the plants and learning how to like see what medicine the plants have to offer and like meditating for an hour and just seeing what happens. And like it was very 0 to 60 of like I had no on ramp. I had no like learning of the concept. It was just like, great, you live in a world now where spirits are real, magic is real, like the nature can talk to you. Like, it was like all of a sudden I was just there and I was like, well, I'm on this trip. Like, I'm not about to question these people's like lives. This is their experience. Like, I'm not going to be that person who comes in like white woman who's being like, that's not science, And so I was like, all right, let's see. And it all resonated with me. And I just had a lot of amazing experiences. And so right away dove straight into yoga, went hardcore, like became a vegan, became obsessed with like yoga, doing 6 yoga classes a week, like very, very intense. Got my yoga teacher training like far too young. And I mean, you could get your yoga teacher training whenever, but like I was very innocent, naive. I wasn't approaching it from a very grounded place, but learned a lot, grew a lot. And then at the end of all of that, had some really great experiences finding mentors and teachers who helped me realize that while this was all a great start, I was really falling into kind of the new age trap of like,
Mhm.
eagle feathers and sage and like, yoga as a wellness routine, not a religion that comes from a deep historical practice.
Mhm.
And so I kind of stopped. I stopped teaching yoga. I stopped practicing in a lot of ways and took a huge step back with the focus of wanting to decolonize my spirituality. And that practice started, thank you. That practice started in 2018, which was really, I guess, a big turning point for me. And that's when I started researching like my ancestry and how to, root my practice more. Um, and then through all of that, like 2020 happened, things got crazy, had some wild experiences. And then that's when I found my witchcraft and opened up to my mediumship and opened up to a lot of things and got to where I am today. Um, I'm sure we'll get more into that story as more episodes get there. But
Yeah.
during that time, around 2015, was when I was met Kaitlyn, or 2016 was when I met
Mhm.
Kaitlyn and really began like the witchy side of my journey. I'd only really known spirituality through yoga. And I mean, Kaitlyn, you seem to think it happened before I met you because you remember me having already been reading tarot when we met. I don't remember that at all, but I trust you.
I think we discovered it around the same
Yeah, it must
time.
have been very new for me. Like I was kind of like, what's this? Other new age people do. Like I was still in that new age part of my journey, right? But like on
Yeah.
the edge of leaving it. And so I feel like I was learning about these things like the tarot and being like, this is interesting and feels like it has a resonance for me that is
Mhm.
deeper than like these practices that I have a lot of questions about and don't feel like they're coming from a very good place. Or a very
Yeah,
authentic place, I should say. Yeah.
the barrier to entry seems really high for this stuff too,
Yeah.
because it just sometimes it feels like this unattainable, like, oh, you have to be like gifted a tarot set and you have to have like
Bullshit, go buy
read
a
a
tarot. Get it on Amazon. I mean, I fuck Amazon, but get it on Amazon if that's all you
yes.
can do. Like,
Yeah, no, and or like you have to have had a ghost experience, and it just
yeah.
kind of felt like this stuff that was like, it was like all of the like watching those movies about like magic or stuff when you're
Mhm.
kids, and you're like, she wore this magic necklace, and then she
Right.
became a witch. Like I was waiting for that to happen, and I realized like, oh, I don't have to wait for that to happen. I can just start learning about it, and then that magical shit just kind of like started
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah. You open the
Yeah,
door and everything's just like,
like,
boom.
oh, there you are,
Oh, you
ghost.
ready for ghost experiences? We gotcha. Be careful what you wish for, folks.
Serious, seriously. But yeah, I guess I'll go into like my journey
Yeah.
a little bit. Yeah, so I grew up kind of almost the opposite a
Yeah.
little.
Yeah.
I have from my mom and my dad's side, I have fierce Lutherans on my mom's side and fierce Catholics on my dad's side. So, um,
A lot of ferocity.
a lot of my family is just fierce. Oh, sorry, actually, they're not that kind of fierce. They're
If
more of
only. We wish.
yeah, we wish they're a little bit. But
They
yeah,
just don't know it.
yeah. So I grew up with a lot of like very Christian centered religiosity. I did grow up in Japan, so there was always this. Even though there was a lot of my family influence that was more
Hmm.
Christian based, um, Japan is just a very spiritually rooted community and culture.
Yeah.
So Shintoism, which I didn't like grow up Shinto, but I grew up with a lot of those values of like
Mm-hmm.
respecting your environment and the earth being living and the earth having living spirits in it and
Yeah.
um, like a lot of death and life is very intertwined.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm explaining this well,
No,
but
you're explaining it great. I'm fully
oh, thank
following.
but I was taught by nuns when I was a young little child.
Yeah.
I gave it my best shot. I gave it my best shot. It just like never, there was just so many questions that I had that were kind of like not always answered in a really satisfying way,
Mm.
but I gave it my best
Mhm.
shot. So like kind of growing up, I moved away from kind of Abrahamic religions.
Mhm.
I still think like they can be really beautiful. I really love and
Yeah,
respect
love
them,
me
but it
some
just didn't.
Jesus.
He seems like
Jesus is a homeboy. Like, love
he seems like
Jesus.
he seems like a cool guy,
Yeah, why not?
with a lot of cool things to say. But um, I don't know, just like for me and myself, like it didn't like stick.
Mhm.
So yeah, around when I met Sarah in 2016, which by the way, just like little side story, the first time we met, so I was doing my undergrad in Scotland. Sarah came for grad school, walked in the door, like we hugged each other, and then maybe like the next day, she was like a roommate coming to live in my apartment with like
Like apartment building. Yeah, like we were.
apartment
I
building.
was
Yeah,
taking an empty room in the apartment you guys had. Yeah.
yeah, and I never met you, never talked to you, never whatever. And I can't remember if it was that day or the day after that we ended up buying hair dye together and
Mm.
planning to dye our hair like together and go on
My
adventures.
two memories of our immediate friendship are that I got to this apartment before you did, like because you were on
Yes.
summer break. I got there like a week earlier and I was hanging out with your then boyfriend,
Hmm.
John, and we
Hmm.
were like vibing, like as friends, but just totally vibing. And I remember having this absolute terror of like this person's gonna show up and I'm gonna be like besties with their boyfriend and they're gonna be like, who the fuck is this girl? And then you show up and I'm like, just kidding. John's got to watch out. We're about to fall in love. And then a month later, like a month, I think we walk out the door on Halloween and we are wearing identical outfits and we just lose our shit over it. That like we didn't buy them together, we didn't plan this, we just are wearing identical outfits. And John just goes, "You guys met 3 weeks ago." And it's like,
Yep.
nah, we've known each other forever, baby.
It's so funny to me that you thought like, I mean, not knowing me, you just
Of
never know what you're
course. And growing up in like the world I grew up in, that's a very real, that's how like women friendships worked. And like you were, I mean, this, I don't want to spend a whole episode talking about how your friendship changed my life because that would take a whole episode, but you taught me a lot of new ways of having a
gonna.
friend. Okay, you got
Don't
to
make me
finish your
cry.
story.
Yes, I do. So anyway, sometime when we were in Edinburgh together,
Mhm.
I had the very unique and weird experience of going to Urban Outfitters. And at the front, they had this like a mini little box of like mini tarot. And I was
Yeah,
like, that looks really
pocket-sized
cool.
tarot. Yeah.
Yeah, pocket-sized tarot, learn how to
Yeah.
tarot with the best of them. And I was like, all right, like let me
Yeah.
spend like 15, $20 and see. And I was on a trip to Italy at the time where I think tarot is actually originally rooted
Yeah, we'll
from.
talk. Well, yes, yes. I mean, it's complicated, but yeah,
It's
the tarot
complicated.
deck is from Renaissance Italy. Yeah.
So I sat there with these tiny, like shitty quality cards that were about this small. And I just sat there, like reading the cards and learning more about it because I just never knew. I never had my cards read. I never really knew. So I
Yeah.
was like, let me just learn. And that's where kind of my love grew. Now
Yeah.
I have real big girl size tarot.
Wow, so grown up.
So
Look at you
grown
with your
up.
big pillow.
And yeah, I just kept on learning and I kept on loving it
Yeah.
and read for my friends and family. And I've done a couple like readings for strangers too, but not in like the professional way that Sarah does.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, just like kept on falling in love with it. And
Yeah.
yeah, yes,
Mm.
and I'm gonna start crying if I
Yeah.
talk about it, but we definitely like Sarah and my friendship has been like so fundamental
Yeah.
and giving me like the confidence and the
Mm.
space too. Sorry, I'm like rolling my eyes. I'm like,
I
I'm
know
holding.
we're not good at holding space for our own emotions in public spaces.
Oh, I
Get us
know.
alone and I'll cry all night, but
Oh, 100%. Yes, all the time. I will
but
cry
people are
forever.
watching. It's our Leo rising. We got to put on a show.
Yeah, I've got to
Got to
doll it up
perform,
for
baby.
you. Oh my gosh. Wait, I just found the photo of our first hair dye
Oh,
experience.
look at me with my purple hair.
I know. I was
Oh,
trying to find the photo of us twinning, but that's the one
yeah.
I found, and
I'll
it's
find
really
it.
cute.
I'll find it later. I know I have it. I can picture it in my head so
I
perfectly.
know.
That's little
Um,
little baby Kaitlyn and Sarah. Uh,
but yeah, so I guess in conclusion, like I'm just really open to learning more,
yeah.
seeing more, experiencing more, and actually kind of like going back to my Japanese
Yeah.
roots. Because the more that I've learned and explored, the more I really respect and love like Shintoism
I
and
love that.
yeah, so I'm my own little witch. I don't know what category of witch I
I mean, it's all made
am.
up anyway. Even though we'll have an episode about that. Don't get me started.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so
So I guess I'm curious, like you mentioned that you've read for people, like I would love to talk a little bit about like what your practice looks like. We talked about where it came from. Like what does it look like today? How do you practice like witchcraft? How do you practice tarot?
yeah,
Yeah,
because you and I have very different
everything. Our answers are so different.
yeah, so
We're fraternal
I
twins.
yes, we
We're
are.
twins, but we look nothing alike,
Yes.
internally or externally.
Mm-mm. So yeah, I use tarot definitely like more personally.
Hmm.
Um, I use it for myself a lot when I just have questions that I want tarot to slap me in the face with
Hmm.
answers for. Um, I love reading with my partner.
Yeah.
He was really skeptical initially, but now it's like a kind of fun thing that we do
Yeah.
together. Um, my mom actually loves when I read tarot cards for her.
Fascinating.
My mom loves it. My dad, being more like Catholic and
Uh-huh.
skeptical, he rarely lets me read it, but then every time I finish reading, he's like, "Oh my God."
Classic.
Yes, so I definitely use it as a way to like
Yeah.
communicate with people. If I'm going over to a party, I'll put a tarot card in my bag
Yeah.
and like or tarot deck in my bag and be like, "Who wants a reading? Who has a question?" Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a fun way to communicate and connect with people
Mm.
while also kind of giving them a venue to have questions answered that they might have had.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
So tell
And
me
what
about
would you
you.
say,
Oh,
like, well, I'm just curious, like, what would you say is your witchcraft or spiritual practices look like today, like in addition to tarot, or would you say it's mostly tarot?
um, I think. I mean, I guess like my spiritual practices like definitely are rooted in tarot.
Yeah.
I'm ADHD, so I'm not really good at like meditating and
Yeah.
things, but I like kind of have my own like little rituals that I do in my
Yeah.
daily life that I've like made for myself
Yeah.
and kind of constructed myself. So it's definitely like a non I don't know, like I kind of do a similar thing like
Yeah.
talking to plants or talking to nature, talking to
Yeah.
myself, talking to my dog.
Very much like a
I
household witch, just like part of your
yeah,
everyday life. Yeah.
yeah, it's just like an everyday little things that I do. Like if I accidentally like kick something of mine that I really value, I say sorry or like give
Yeah.
it a little kiss,
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
giving importance and ritual to things.
Yeah.
One of the things that I do love doing, I do this little thing for people that I work with.
Yeah.
Um, So I do a little clearing ritual and I do protective bubbles because I work
Yeah.
in psych. Things stick to us really
Yeah.
easily. So I do this little clearing ritual where I'll like take somebody, literally, I've never met them before, and I'll just be like, whoosh, 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 like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
dust them off. Or if they're having to do something really hard, I do little like protective bubbles.
Yeah.
None of this I've read anywhere.
I know
I
it's the
just,
fool. You are the fool. Like that's the
I
whole
just
point.
do,
You embody
yeah,
the just like dive in, trust the process, go for it, see what happens.
I'm like, hey, stranger, can I like brush off negative energy off of
Yeah.
you? And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, we're
Yeah.
friends now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how I do
Amazing.
it. Just like little ritual
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one way that we definitely, align. I definitely have a level of study and training, but I also think that I would say most of my rituals and practices are very, I would say they're a combination. I mean, it's that Empress
Hmm.
energy. It's like there is. So I have studied spiritism, I've studied mediumship, I've studied tarot, I've studied like folk magic of my ancestors. I'm an animist, which means I believe everything, like not just living things, I believe everything has spirit. And yeah, kind of like what you were talking about with Shinto, like it's like everything
Yeah.
has energy, has spirit. And I
Hmm.
think for me, most of my practices today are kind of a combination of my study and my intuition. You know, like you said, I look at the energetic practices I have around clearing energy, around moving energy, around protection. And they're a
Hmm.
mix. They're like rooted in what I've studied, what I know works. Like, oh, this herb will help for forming a protective amulet, or like, broom in the using a broom in this way is gonna clear my space. But then when I'm making like a simmer pot to clear the energy in my house, I'm gonna use the things I know work and then also be like, "Ooh, I feel like I should throw cinnamon in this." Okay. And like
Yeah.
trusting that intuition. I would say for my personal practice, I do have a daily practice. I tend my altars every day. Do that whole routine. I work with my ancestors a lot, talk to them a lot, bake bread with them. Uh, Talk to the earth a lot, talk to nature a lot. It's a lot about spiritism. It's a big part of my practice. So working with spirits, talking to spirits. Tarot is a huge part of my practice. And then I also work professionally. So I read tarot for people. I do mediumship for people. I offer witchy services. And I would say for me, it is the services I offer are a way of helping people connect to their spirits and to their own intuition. And that's really my purpose I was just thinking about this the other day that I think my life mission is I want to help people feel less alone. Um, and sometimes it's just in my community. Like I spend a lot of time like being a part of my community, but it's also in the way that I offer my services. I'm always trying
Mhm.
to lead people back to themselves, back to their spirits, and let them forge their own relationships with that. So they're not reliant on me, but I am a tool for them to like gain access and get started, and then they can go off on their own.
Well, job
Yeah.
complete for me. You make me feel less alone all the
Yes.
time. But it's really cool. I think you know,
Done. Crushed it. Oh, did I hit
um
the mic? Whoops.
no, that's my self five. I high five
Oh,
myself a lot.
I thought you were clapping so we could edit something out. Incredible. We're keeping all of this in.
Yeah. But I was gonna say that's like some of the like why I think w and we're talking a lot about the origin of the podcast and like why we're here because it's the
Yeah.
first episode. But I think
Yeah.
that's like what makes it work too. I think like you doing this as and I'm like curious about what you do.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
curious about the things that you're studying and there's a lot of things that I kind of do on the
Yeah.
fly. There's a lot of things I do. I'm like, oh, this feels good, or like that's not what that tarot card means, but that's
Yeah.
what I'm hearing
Yeah.
or seeing. So I just love the way that like it's we just approach things in such a different way, but at the end it kind of comes in the same
Yeah.
to the same place.
And I think that's why like today about how they were doing like a relationship reading and I was getting this energy from the reading that was like this isn't your forever person, but there is a reason you're meeting them right now. Like this is person's gonna like play an important role in your life and specifically around like your spiritual development and your like magic development. And I think that there are like certain people who come into your lives at really pivotal places on your spiritual journey. And I think you and I were that for each other. Like, I think both of us went a lot deeper on our tarot and witchcraft journeys than we would have gone if we hadn't had each other as roommates during that time. Because we were both
Yeah,
new to it. We were curious, but we were skeptics. And then we had someone else who was willing to like just sit there and do tarot with us over and over and over and just keep being like, how is this happening? How do these cards know this? And we were both as like wowed by
yeah.
it instead of like, reading it for someone who's just immediately like, this is bullshit. And so it was like
Hmm.
the door felt like it was open because of that. And I
Hmm.
think like one of the things I really learned from you and one of the things that I really look up to you for is that like my biggest challenge in my practice is trusting my own intuition. Like I will
Hmm.
be reading for someone and I will hear like a name or a date or like some sort, because my mediumship is something I've been developing and it'll come through and I'll hear things and I'm immediately like, that's bullshit. I'm making that up. But if I just trust it, half the time people are like, how the fuck did you know that? If I just allow myself to trust it. And one thing that
Yeah.
you have always been so good about is just saying it because I mean, I love you. You have no filter. And so
No.
you're just like, I think, I don't know why, but I'm thinking this. And then people are like, oh my God, how did you know that? And it's just like been
Uh-huh.
such an role model for me of like, it's okay to just say it. Like maybe you'll be wrong, maybe it'll mean nothing, but you're not going to know if you don't trust and if you don't try and if you don't just like throw it out there and see what sticks, you know?
And I think that's like our like core philosophy
Yeah.
of this whole podcast is
Yeah.
why not? And I think I
Oh
love
God,
that we
sorry, I just got excited about something, but you go.
I no, I just love that it's I think it's really hard for like I said before, like the kind of barrier of entry seems really
Yeah.
high and really unattainable, especially because it's like something that's not very well, it's becoming quite mainstream, kind
Yeah,
of
but
like
still,
with
I get it. Yeah.
yeah, it's not easy to dive into this stuff because there's so much judgment on a lot of different sides and so much misunderstanding from a
Yeah.
lot of different kind of facets of your life. And I just love that you and I both pushed each other to just keep
Yeah.
on being curious.
Yeah.
It's fuck it, who cares if you're wrong?
Yeah.
Like
And I think so many
you
people
care the
think that like
most.
you have to have a gift. Like you have to, you're either born with these gifts or you're not. You're either psychic or you're not. And like I get that. My mentor talks about hearing voices when they were 5, and I'm like, damn, I didn't hear my first I didn't have my first like psychic moment. I mean, I had some, but like my real first like mediumship moments weren't until I was like 28, you know? And like there's nothing we don't want we're like obviously who are we to gatekeep anyway, but like there should be no
No,
gate. Like and I just
no,
yeah, and I think what's so perfect is like as we talk about what we admire about each other's practices, it's exactly what this podcast is about, like the Empress and the Fool. Like I really admire your ability to just like trust and dive in and see what happens. And you admire my ability to like ground it into the earth and like have these like deeper connections with spirit and practice.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I want to learn more from you, and we're gonna keep learning more from each other, and
Yes.
just yeah. So I guess if you're okay, let's talk
Yeah.
about like what's kind of coming up for
Yeah.
us.
Absolutely.
Um, I so and I can hear my dog crying right now, so we're gonna have to wrap it up soon
Perfect.
anyway.
Perfect.
Um, but I think so. What we're really aiming to do here is maybe not demystify because that's not our
Yeah.
job, but at least to kind of give us a space to explore
Mhm.
different topics that we've been curious about or that we've explored already.
Yeah.
And then just really talk about them. Like, what does
Yeah.
that mean? What are some sources? I definitely know Sarah will have sources
Yeah.
cited.
I do. I think there's going
Um,
to be a blend of like education and exploration, right? Of like
yeah.
educating on the different like witchy tarot topics that interest us, while also like exploring them together and asking questions and being skeptical but open at the same time. And like, we have episodes coming up that we want to talk about like what is cartomancy? Like what is divination? We also want to talk about like how to have spiritual like healthy spiritual hygiene, spell
Mm-hmm.
casting, like the scary cards in the tarot, like what are they? Are they actually scary? Like is the devil a bad thing to get? What are past lives? Like all we're gonna go all over the place. And I think our
Yeah.
goal is to really explore, I mean, like we said, all things magic and mysticism by two curious witches.
And we're not always going to get it right, but we're
God,
always
no.
here to be like, we're always here to be open minded, open
Yeah.
to feedback, and just like really loving in what we do.
Yeah.
Because we're not here to judge, we're not here to hurt, we're just
Yeah.
here to be open and we're human.
Yeah.
So we want to hear. We have this is so weird saying because we don't have any audience at all, but
Yeah.
we
Well,
do.
my mom will listen.
Oh,
My mom will
um,
definitely listen to every episode. See you, Brenda. Love you.
hey Brenda, love you. Um, but yeah, we do want to hear like topics that
Yeah.
anyone who's listening wants to hear about that we because
Hmm.
we're just curious people. So there are very few topics that we're going to be like, no, boring.
Yeah.
But we're also yeah, fallible people. So if there's feedback you have, like
Yeah.
let us know. We want to hear it. We
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
love
I mean, we'll
learning.
have like a website and all that. We'll put it all in the show notes. We're still figuring that all out, but It'll be probably like sarahdittmore.com/podcast because we aren't going to buy a new domain name for this yet.
Not yet. But if you do want to check out more of the work that Sarah does, she is known as the Mystic Auntie.
Yes,
Um,
sarahdittmore.com. That's Sarah with
mhm.
an H, Dittmore. Come get a reading.
Hell yes.
And Kaitlyn
Um,
is an incredible graphic designer on the side.
I
What is your
yeah.
Instagram handle?
Mine is Koi Arts Studio. I actually have to look it up because I don't remember what I do. Yeah. K
Kaiartstudio. Yeah.
yes, with periods in between. But
Ooh,
we'll
okay.
like, yeah, we'll like post all of this
It'll be
stuff so
all in
you
the
can
show
find
show
us
notes, yeah.
everywhere. And then so next week, we're gonna have an
Yeah.
episode on
Our
called
favorite
Tarot
tarot
Time.
decks. Yeah, so how we're gonna do it is we're gonna alternate. Every other week is gonna be a main episode where we really dive into different magical, witchy topics, and then every other week is gonna be tarot time, where we talk about all things tarot. Sometimes that'll be discussing tarot topics like how to structure a reading or like unpacking different cards and like their interpretations. But it'll also be deck reviews, and we'll share our favorite decks or our least favorite decks, talk about them, explore them together. So next week, Kaitlyn and I are each going to share our go-to Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck and talk a
Mhm.
little bit about how we use it, what we think of it. So make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening or watching so that you see that. I know I'm like, I don't even know how to do this. Rate, review, subscribe. We're
Sorry,
real
just
podcasters.
I know, I just had that moment. I was like, wow, that just became really real. Are we recording a podcast right
Are we
now?
about to become famous? Can you imagine?
I could never.
Yeah, no, we don't have the what do you call it? Like media training.
Oh no. We'd be
uh,
disasters being
see,
famous.
having no filter, as mentioned before. Rate, review, subscribe, support our work, help people find us. It matters to
Yeah.
podcasts a lot.
Yeah.
We were gonna do like our. Do you need to check on your dog?
No, I think we're good. Sorry, you like lagged for a quick
Well,
second
I
on my
just
end.
remembered we were going to talk about our desert witch bags. Do we want to do that to end it? The little.
Yes.
Okay, so that's everything about the podcast. And now to end it out, we'll do a little fun thing we came up with where we're each going to share if we were on a desert island and could only bring like one little bag of witchy things, what would we
Hmm.
bring with us? So, do
Yes.
you want to go or should I start? You
Um,
start. I talked a lot
I'll
just
go. I'll go.
now.
To this mystic desert island, I would bring my original deck that we're going to talk about next
Do you have it
week.
with you? Can you show us?
I do.
Little show
Yes,
and
I
tell. We'll
do.
dive into it
This is
next
my
review.
gorgeous Rider Waite tarot deck. Um, and then it would be this labradorite pendant that I got from my
Amazing.
partner, Jesse, because labradorite's my favorite stone.
Yeah.
Um, and then this is so impractical. This is like
Yeah.
also impractical. I love it, but I love my silver rings, which I also have two
Not
labradorite
practical,
rings.
it's magical.
I love, but this one's my favorite.
Yeah.
I
Your
got it
little
in Edinburgh, and
hands.
it's a hug.
If you're just
Yeah.
listening, it's two hands around the fingers that are like giving a hug to the finger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are my three. Oh, and my
The
don't
ghost.
look. Don't look at my
The ghost is
mess.
making your flag fall to the earth.
Yeah. They were like, clean up your mess, bitch.
Get your shit together.
Get your shit. Organize your wardrobe. Okay.
Okay, so your tarot deck, your labradorite pendant, your rings,
Yeah.
and that's everything?
And my dog.
And your dog. Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. Okay, mine are also, of course, my tarot deck. So mine we'll talk about next week as well. But Rider's Waite Smith. And then, which I was thinking, like, I have a lot of decks I like, but if I could only bring one, I would bring the
Mhm.
Rider Waite Smith.
Yep.
And then my little broom for
Shut
protection
up.
and clearing. You
Shut
can
up.
get
That's
these at Trader
so
Joe's
cute.
every fall for like $1.99. I have a couple and I just put like cinnamon oil on them each year to like re-infuse them with the vibes.
It's so cute.
What else? What else? My pendulum. It's a little, I think this is probably like quartz, a little quartz pendulum.
Wow.
I would bring my tiny little fist-sized cauldron for burning herbs and saning. I know, of course, you're. I'm like, I have all these tools. I have a little reading room for doing in-person readings out here in Truckee, and it was so fun walking around and realizing like what was a good exercise because it was like I have so many witchy things and I love them all, but it was nice to walk through and be like, okay, at the heart of my practice, what matters most, you know? So this little pewter cauldron that's the size of like two fists.
It's so
Um,
cute. All these little mini things are like,
I know. I also have so much more than you. I'd be fucked if I was on a test. I'm like, wait, I gotta grab my bag. A selenite wand.
love that.
Uh, my rune stones, and maybe not my rune stones because I could paint new ones on the desert island, but theoretically I would need something to carve them, if not the stones themselves. So
But you need something to do.
yeah, that's true. Maybe I just need like a picture of all the runes so I don't forget them when I'm carving them.
Hmm.
And then my last little few things are oh, my bell,
Love.
big part of my practice, which I'm sure we'll talk a lot about. A water cup, an offering cup. And then I thought a lot about this because a white candle is one of the most important parts of my practice, like without a doubt.
Hmm.
But I don't know if it's practical because it wouldn't like I would need an infinite supply. So I would bring a book on how to make candles from foraged materials, and I would make myself
Yes.
a white candle, and then that I can use as a bandana or as an altar cloth. And that would be my desert island baggie.
I love, you need a big bag, but
I
I
do
love
need, but
it.
it's not that much. I could fit it all
No,
in my hands. I walked down the stairs with it, island with it.
I love how like efficient they are too. They're like broom, but mini,
Yeah,
cauldron, but mini.
yeah.
Like,
All the supplies I need, but small because I used to live in a New York City apartment. I basically was a desert island witch.
it's cold out there.
It's hard, New York City, classic isolated, no access to anything desert island.
No, not at all. There's like
Man,
such a lack of just people and things and noises around
yes,
at all
yes,
times.
yeah. I also wanted to bring about 10 different books, and so obviously I brought zero because I couldn't pick.
Oh, I do have one more desert island thing,
Oh,
and it
okay.
is okay, sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm
Just because you said book. Oh,
here for it. I would like to bring, but oh, a book of
okay,
shadows.
that's a good one. But also, this is a journal that my partner gave me. It has my name on it embossed. This is another crazy one.
Yeah.
You had
That
a
exact
book.
journal.
Yes, you had this book on your side table when I visited you, I
Yeah,
think
that's
in
my
New
writing
York.
journal.
Oh no, you had it in Edinburgh too.
Yeah, I've had it for years. I've had it since I graduated college. It's my writing journal.
I saw it and I thought it was gorgeous. It was like leather bound, like all
Marbled
the
edges.
marbled edges, like all the possibility. And I was like, wow, that book is so magical. I want one so badly,
Yeah,
but I don't want to copy Sarah. And also, like,
please copy me.
I,
We're already the
I'm
same.
such a journal hoe.
Yeah,
And without, I thought about it a lot. I was like, not gonna lie, I was like, I dream about this journal.
yeah.
And my partner for Christmas, one of the first Christmases we had as like an official couple, he got this for me with my name embossed in it. Not knowing the story, not knowing
Oh my
my
God,
deepest
you
it
manifested it.
I know. And I like when I opened it, I was unreasonably excited.
Right? It's like, wow, I did way better than I realized.
And he was like, wait, it's like just a journal, right?
You're like, no,
But
you
yeah,
don't understand. It's the
I'm like
journal.
I'm like crying. I'm like, it's so much more than a
Oh,
journal. Like,
yes. Oh my
yeah, so
God.
this would be on my desert island as well, as you reminded me.
All
Um, yeah. All right.
right, I guess that's it. Should I pull a tarot card? Is that a good way to end the episodes? Like, how should we
Ooh,
just
let's do
alternate?
it.
Like, do you want to pull one this time?
No, you
I'm
pull
in alt
one.
time or vice versa? Okay.
You pull one.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so okay, I'm gonna pull a card. Actually, okay, they're telling me I gotta do a little opening. It can be small though. Okay, it can be small. My guides are like, oh, we're doing tarot. Let's talk about it. Okay.
Oh my God, teach me to be a
Um,
medium, please.
okay. Oh my God, look what card's at the bottom of the deck right now. The Fool. You are with us in this reading. Um,
Hey,
okay, so as we open this space for this reading, I call in the spirits of the seven directions. Grandfather Fire from the east, Grandmother Water from the west, Father Air from the north, Mother Earth from the south, good spirits above and good spirits below be with us. Give the cards a little nap, and let's read. So we're
bring
just
the
gonna
whole
pull
family
one.
here.
Yeah, right. We're just gonna pull one card today. One card that can resonate with our listeners, our viewers, and ourselves, no matter the time or place they are listening from. We have the Seven of Pentacles. I think for us in particular, this makes a lot of sense as we are building this new project together. But a little bit about the Seven of Pentacles. If you're not looking on YouTube, it's got a figure leaning their chin on like a hoe of some sorts. The tool, not the person. I knew you were gonna make a hoe joke.
You saw my face just change. Like,
I called it. I didn't even look. I just knew. And
okay.
they're leaning on a hoe, and they're looking at this like it's like a big green pile of like what could be ivy or growing plants, and there's seven pentacles like growing on like harvest like ripening on the vine. And it is a card of watching the seeds you've planted grow, and it is the pause in the process of growing new things. So you've planted the seed, you've tended the garden, things are growing, but